Hi everyone, welcome back to my lab and today's video, which is going to be a first impression and demo on the Morphe by Jaclyn Hill palette. This is from the Vault collection and the palette I'm using today is Dark Magic. I did use the palette to create this look, which I will demo for you, and I did establish a couple of opinions based on my first experience using the palette, which I would like to share with you today. So just a few housekeeping items out of the way. I did purchase my palette in the Vault collection, which I purchased from Morphe Brushes as a set, but today's video is going to focus on the Dark Magic palette. I'm going to make a separate video for each of the palettes, so definitely leave your thoughts in the comment section about which palette I should address next. I started with this one because if you look inside, it does have one of the more unique color stories. It's very cool tone, which I don't have a lot of cool tone eyeshadow palettes in my collection. And also this is one of the ones that was giving people a lot of trouble when they were working with it. Now this being a first impression, I've not used every shade in the palette. The ones that I have not yet used are the shades Busted, Mojo, and Temptress. Those are 3 out of the 10 shadows that I did not use. I did use 7 out of the 10. Now so far my favorite shade in the palette, I have 2. The first one is the shade Poof, and this is the first shade I went in with. It's a beige shade that's very close to my skin tone, and I used it from my eyebrow to my crease to just start the transition and have something for all the other shadows to blend over. I really like that one because it actually really seemed to smooth my eyelid. I primed my eyes with concealer and I set it with translucent powder, and when I applied that, it just seemed to really smooth my eyelid and it just created a very nice smooth base, and I really liked it. I also like the shade Potion. It's a very olive green type of tone, and I think it's really unique in my collection, especially for eyeshadows in the drugstore price range. So based on my experience with them today, those 2 are my favorite shades. The other mattes that I used were the shades Shh and the shade Inside Job. Both of them worked fine for me. I had no trouble having them adhere to the lid. This one is a little bit more cool tone than I prefer, and it's a little bit ashy gray on my skin tone. So I did sort of overlap it with the Potion shade. And then the shade Inside Job, I had no trouble having it adhere to my lid. I used patting motions on the outer third of my eye and then swiping motions to blend it into the crease, and I didn't have any trouble. I also used a small pencil brush along the lower lash line and it was fine. Now where I was a little bit disappointed actually was in the metallic shades. I used the shades Power Cut. I have that in the inner corner. I have the shade Trickery on the outer third of my lid and the shade Diversion on the inner part of my lid. What I notice about the metallics is that even though they swatch very nicely, they don't really apply as metallic as they swatch. Now, they do feel creamy to the touch, and like I said, they swatch very well. I applied them with a dry brush today because I just didn't want to give the shadows any kind of assist while I was working with them for the first time. And they applied, they adhered to my lid, and they blended with each other fine, but they didn't pack that foiled punch. Now obviously I didn't foil the shadow, so the next time I use it I will definitely use the shadows wet to see if I get a better result. Just the same, I've used a couple Morphe shadows before that are metallic and I've gotten a little bit better of a result with the metallic shades, and so they're not my favorite in the palette. Now in general, do I think that this is worth $15? I do, actually. I think that it performs like a $15 eyeshadow palette. Now one of the things that I think is an advantage of this palette is that in the drugstore price range, it's very hard to find a color story like this at the range of $15. I think that the closest thing you could probably find is maybe in NYX Cosmetics, and the price for NYX is starting to get higher and higher. So I do like that it's a very unique color story and it's a very unique palette in my collection, both drugstore and high end. So I do like the palette. I think it is worth $15, and I would recommend picking it up at Ulta Beauty if you're interested in this one, because you can get $3.50 off 15, bringing the price even lower. Is it my favorite palette I've ever used? No, absolutely not actually, but I don't dislike it. I think it's fine, and I think that it's worth the money that I paid. Now, I purchased mine from Morphe and in a bundle, so I got a little tiny bit of a savings, but not much really since you have to pay for shipping. So I would suggest, if you're interested in this palette, to just pick it up from Ulta Beauty. So these are my first impressions on using the palette. I will go ahead and get into the demo if you're interested in seeing how I create the eye look and also seeing how the shadows perform on the eyes. NYX number 16 brush and the shade Poof all over the upper lid. Makeup Forever 242 and the shade Shh. MAC 221 and the shade Potion. Volume 781 and the shade Inside Job. Same shade and a xoxo 05 along the lower lash line. And I'm going to blend that all out with the MAC 221 and the Potion shade. Makeup Forever 226 and the shade Trickery. I'm using the shade Dry. Makeup Forever 228 and the shade Diversion. Back with the 226, I'm just going to blend the overlap. And lastly, with the Smith 253, I'm going to apply Power Cut to the inner corner. So looking at my eye, most of the fallout came from the shade Diversion. And again, I'm using those metallics dry just to see what kind of payoff I can get out of them. And it's okay, just not very metallic. Yeah, this is the shade that's giving me the most trouble in terms of fallout, but like I said, I'm using my brush entirely dry and I'm not putting it down on a sticky base either. That's your finished look without liner or mascara. So you can take a look at how the shadows blended, how they applied. To finish off the eye, I'm going to apply wing liner, mascara, and I'm going to tightline using black liner and the waterline using a nude. Hopefully you enjoyed seeing the demo and seeing how the shades apply, and you see how my experience corresponds with my opinions so far. Just in case you're interested in my lip combination, I'm using the MAC Spice lip liner, and I'm using the Bare Minerals gloss in the shade Popular. I would love to hear your thoughts down below on what you think of the look, as well as how the shades seem to perform based on my demonstration, and also if you've picked up any or all of the palettes. I'd be very curious to know what your thought process was. I hesitated on purchasing, I'm not going to deny that, because of all the issues that resulted with the initial launch, and if there's any doubt as to whether the shadows were actually remanufactured or not, I don't know. But in case you're interested, my palettes are stamped with V2 and the batch number is AB05N, and that's N as in Nancy. So that's what my batch number is. I don't know if I got a good palette or if I got a bad palette. Overall, my general opinion is that I have an okay palette, one that's definitely usable. I think that you can create a lot of pretty looks with this, both neutral and then some that are a little more adventurous, like the one I'm wearing today, because the shade selection is really interesting. So that's everything for my video today. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do not forget to give me a big thumbs up. It really helps my channel. If this was your first visit to my channel, then hopefully you'll consider hitting that subscribe button and joining me in the future for another one. I look forward to seeing you again in a couple of days for my next video. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you're having a great one. Bye-bye.